Mr. Spyler, nice to finally meet your acquaintance. Comes to my knowledge that, unfortunately, you have an issue within your workplace, mainly with your employees. It has come to my attention that you are disappointed and frustrated. You said despite your best efforts, you have been unable to motivate your employees and improve their performance. You have attempted to change their behavior through the use of motivational videos and the purchase of new updated equipment. And despite all these changes, the performance level is still the same that it was 18 months ago. And I understand, Jack, that it has come to your knowledge that none of your employees have had any formal training in the job that they're doing. Now, as a man who's in a position of assessing training methods, I could see how this knowledge could leave you astonished and dumbfounded. And I understand that you want a remedy for your issue within your company. Fortunate enough for you, that's where I come in. To really get you on board here and make you feel comfortable and convinced, I want to just first present to you the industrial and organizational psychologist definition of training. A man in my field, and those like me, define training as the formal procedures that a company utilizes to facilitate learning so that the resultant behavior contributes to the attainment of the company's goals and objectives. Already we're making progress. Training contributes to company goals and objectives. Obviously, you need me to train your employees to obtain your company's goals and objectives. First off, understanding that we do have goals and objectives, we need to assess how to get there. By doing that, the first step in this process is assessing training needs. When assessing your company's training needs, the first obvious factor that comes into play is that the training needs of your company lie within the non-management level, mainly your employees. You've stated earlier that no matter what you do, nothing can boost their performance level. Now, Mr. Spyler, a very common theme with innovative and successful companies is that they consistently preach how employee training contributes to organizational outcomes. To further divulge into assessment of training needs, there are three basic analyses that we can look at within these needs. One being organizational analysis, two being task analysis, three being personal analysis. In regards to organizational analysis, we're basically asking ourselves, where's the training needed in the organization? We answer this question by conducting an organizational analysis to determine the organization's short and long-term goals, and then to compare those goals to the organization's accomplishments. By doing this, we can identify which goals aren't being reached, as these areas are likely to be targets for training. An example of this would be employees not having the work environment feel like a very friendly family atmosphere. It's very hostile. They're not comfortable. Something such as this would be an area for training and thus help you obtain your goals as a company. Essentially, organizational analysis considers the culture of the organization. What exactly is it that this organization needs to develop and train to become successful? Moving away from the organizational aspect, we look to task analysis. Mainly, we're asking ourselves what duties, tasks, behaviors, and actions need to be improved. So, Mr. Spyler, as the manager of the Pioneer Valley Bicycle Company, have you thoroughly examined the task requirements for the successful conduct of each job, specifying exactly what the new employees are going to do on their jobs? By doing this, it simply distinguishes employees that are ready to do a certain job and others who can't do the job because they don't have any formal training. By doing an analysis such as this, you could understand what employees are ready and those who are not. By using task analysis, we identify what needs to be further developed and redefined to allow employees to do their job. And lastly, we have person analysis. Basically, person analysis is who needs the training in the company. This analysis is very intimate because it focuses on the employee specifically and if they really do need the training. All in all, personal analysis is a direct assessment of an employee's ability to carry out their job. So, Mr. Speiler, basically, within your company, we would use personal analysis to get to the point where we are individually looking at employees that may or may not be a weak link within the company. Moving away from assessing the organization itself, we're going to look at instructional design. Basically, we're going to look at the events that facilitate training through their impact on trainees. Basically, instructional design refers to all activities that are developed and coordinated to support the trainee's learning process. So basically, we would first off focus on what exactly it is they're learning, Mr. Speiler. In what form are your employees learning? Is it cognitive, psychomotor, or social? Or is it a sophisticated scheme that presents design features or learning conditions providing feedback and informing trainees of goals that can be mapped to the various categories of learning? So is it very simple or is it detailed? And an obvious factor in this, Mr. Speiler, within the company, this sophisticated training. With this approach, it allows the organization to use existing knowledge to build an effective context or environment for the specific learning targeted by the organization. It's a very detailed approach and allows for a great assessment. But is that the right way to go about training your employees? Lastly, the final element to look in of the instructional design is the planned evaluation. But before we could do the planned evaluation, we must look at other elements of the instructional design. One of those elements being active learning, or mainly resources and activities such as practice, problem solving, written communication, and verbal interactions intended to improve analysis and synthesis of information. So basically, it's a hands-on approach to learning. At all times, everyone is engaged. Next, we have size of the unit to be learned. The question here is whether training should be structured in such a way as to present the whole task or only part of the task in a given training session. So, will your employees, Mr. Speiler, be able to divulge all the training in one session, or should it be broken up into individual sessions? Is too much information being provided in just one session, or would they benefit more from a series of sessions where information would be easily retained and it would not be a surplus amount? Next, we have meaningfulness of material. This basically means making the material that the employees learn be more meaningful. Organizations should incorporate a few elements into their training programs to make the material more meaningful and relevant for the trainees. Mr. Speiler, obviously, if something's more relevant and meaningful to you, you're going to digest it better and apply it better to your job. So by assessing this element of instructional design, it's a very essential part to pay attention to. Overall, in this aspect, we want the trainee to understand and be able to relate to the material given, thus making it meaningful. By doing this, the reception that you get from your employees will be high, and also the goals that you set for the company will hopefully be achieved. And lastly, we must look at the effective practice. Mainly, this means, are we working hard or are we working smart? How is the quality of the practice? How is the quality of the training? Is it quantity-based or quality-based? Is the practice being conducted in an appropriate way or an inappropriate way? An example of this would be overlearning. So this is basically the process of giving trainees continued practice even after they have appeared to master the behavior, resulting in a high levels of learning. So basically here, would we beat a dead horse? If you understand and know that your trainees have learned the new material and have mastered their, say, art, would you continuously have them train the same material, thus resulting in frustrated and demoralized behavior and work ethic? Something that could be an element within your company, Mr. Speiler. And on the other end of the spectrum, those who are training also have feedback. They have feedback from what they're learning, from how they're learning it, basically a way to show you if they're retaining the information or not. Feedback in my field comes back in the knowledge of results and serves three purposes in a training context. One, it provides information that allows trainees to make whatever adjustments may be necessary in their behaviors during training. Two, it makes the learning process more interesting for the trainees and increases their motivation to learn. And lastly, three, it leads to goal setting for improving performance. And how the feedback is delivered is also essential. One, feedback best works when it is given immediately following the individual's behavior. Two, immediate and frequent feedback tends to result in the best performance. And three, both positive and negative feedback have value when delivered in a sensitive yet clear manner. So in the elements of instructional design, the effective practice is just as important and essential as the type of learning, such as active learning, the size of units to be learned, and meaningfulness. Now we move on to characteristics of the trainer. Basically, we're talking about how effective the trainer is. Mr. Speiler, an effective trainer establishes specific objectives and communicates them clearly to the trainees. Second, trainers should have a solid understanding of how people learn. So basically, if you have people skills, then you should be training. If you don't, then you shouldn't be training at all. Third, communication skills are extremely important. As you might imagine, trainees' attitudes, motivation, and behaviors are likely to be adversely affected by a trainer who communicates in a rigid, closed, negative, and condescending way. So basically, you want to treat people the way you would like to be treated. Is this something that may be apparent in Pioneer Valley Bicycle Company, Mr. Speiler? Lastly, trainers must realize that different trainees may require different style or different treatment from the trainer. So, even though you are paying them, you want the best that they could possibly be. You don't want to treat them in a manner that's general. You want to not cater to everyone's needs, but be compassionate. Next, we move to training delivery. Training delivery can consist of lecturing, group discussions, audio-visual approach, on-the-job training, or a combination of the various approaches. So, Mr. Speiler, with laying all this out, the base information of what I would do with Pioneer Valley Bicycle Company, now that you have a general idea of how I would assess your company completely, I'm going to go into detail about how I would now apply this information of industrial organizational psychology to your company and therefore enhance Pioneer Valley Bicycle Company. In regards to training needs, it's obvious that it lies at the non-management level, so your employees need the most training. I think considering that you said none of your employees have any prior training, I think that it doesn't fall on you necessarily with task analysis, but at the same time, maybe relaying the information a bit more would help. But I think where the root of our issue lies is in personal analysis. We need to have a personal analysis of who actually does need the training. Because if you look at the numbers, you said that performance has stagnated at the same rate for the 18 months. Somewhere in that statistic, there are employees who do perform well and keep that number stagnant rather than it declining. So by observing that, I think that the best analysis we could go within the assessment of training needs is a person analysis, where we individually assess the employees. I base this solely off of the fact that you said none of your employees have had any formal training. So really we need to start at the rudimentary base of this issue, and that's basically analyzing every employee that you have. In regards to the instructional design, I think that the best way for you to achieve a very successful training program is by active learning. having these people be engaged while also learning what they need to do creates more of an intake of the information and is easier to process. Allows them to be familiarized with the process of the job that they will be doing. And I think in regards to the size of the unit to be learned, considering that they have no formal training at all, I think that it is better to easily divide into independent components, considering that maybe giving all of this information that they haven't been trained in at once would be a little excessive and grotesque for them to absorb at once. So basically, this would be a distributed practice where it's put into segments and there's usually rest in between the periods of training. In regards to meaningfulness of material, I think that this is sort of a very soft point, Mr. Spilo, that you could attack here in regards to communicating and making basically the material meaningful. Approaching it in a way that will allow them to grow with the company and basically allow them to put pride in their company that they work for and relate it to them saying that here we are starting fresh on a new foot, and applying that to their training will be meaningful because they'll feel like they have a hand or a more of a contribution to the revamp of the company. And I think in regards to the effectiveness of practice, we don't need to look at really overlearning because these people are not masters at their craft. Your employees here, Mr. Spilo. I think that the best thing to do is feedback, since we are at a very early stage of assessing and really finding out who your employees are and what are their true abilities in regards to their performance. And to deal with characteristics of trainers, I think that it is very, very essential, very important to have the characteristics that we talked about earlier. Someone who is very people orientated, has good people skills, a solid foundation of communication, so that these people will not only have the act of learning, but have a voice to rear that learning and to allow them to feel comfortable and treated as equals, considering there is a trainer and a trainee. But in reality, we want coherence and camaraderie to be a part of this whole process of training them and getting them prepared for a new start to the company and a new face that they need to be bought into 100%. And I think along the lines of training delivery, I think that the best way to go about this would be a combination of approaches. First off, what I said, active learning, I like on-the-job training, working with the actual machines and materials that they will have on the job in the training process. And I think that multimedia techniques are a very essential thing as well. Stopping the presentation to show the right approach, showing segments to make sure that the importance of the segment is reiterated and people understand what needs to be done. But I think a hybrid of these two approaches, with the active learning on the job and the multimedia techniques, will be a more than necessary remedy, Mr. Spilo, to revamp and inject new life into Pioneer Valley Bicycle Company. And hopefully by doing this, we eradicate that stagnant performance level that you've had for the past 18 months. You understand that motivational videos and updated equipment might not be the answer, but it's actually the personal level and the ability due to the training of the employees themselves. So, Mr. Spilo, I've given you the remedy. I've laid out the information so that you will understand me and you're on the same page with me. I've applied it. I've assessed the model that I've given you. And now I'm giving you an offer you can't refuse. You take my model, you let me apply it to your company, Pioneer Valley Bicycle Company. You let me erase all the issues that you've had for the past 18 months. You allow me to erase your frustrations and doubts, revamp this company, and invigorate new life into it. That is my offer. Thank you for your time and have a good day.